Hi guys, it's Sean from Hifonics, and today we're going to be talking about the install for the RZR Stage 5 audio kit from Hifonics. Install time is going to be around 3 to 4 hours. For all our installations, we recommend a pretty basic tool set. So, as you can see on the table, we have a set of sockets, a torque set, an Allen set, drill with varying bits, some panel poppers, I have some tape, zip ties. To see the full list of tools that are required for this installation, make sure to visit the manual. Let's go over some of the essentials for this installation. First up, it's going to be important to keep the manual by your side throughout the installation. Safety is extremely important. We recommend that you have safety glasses throughout the installation. Make sure to disconnect the negative side of the battery and have a packing blanket to protect your machine so you don't get it scratched.
Make sure to check the manual, because the first step is we need to remove the back plate of the kick panel speaker so that it can fit into the pod. So let's go ahead and remove the sticker. Then we will remove the 4 screws that are attached to the back of the speaker, and then remove the back plate. You will notice that the compression diaphragm is exposed. We don't want unnecessary debris getting in here, so we have a protection plate that needs to be installed. This also lowers the depth so that it fits properly in your pod. So now let's go ahead and replace the set of 4 screws to mount the back plate protector, and then we should be ready to secure it to our pod. Next step, we are going to remove the glove box door. So in order to do that, we want to gently bow the door in order to remove it from the pivots. After we have it loose, we can just set that to the side for now. Now let's prep our sub enclosure for the factory door. The included bracket looks like this. It will mount to the enclosure with the bend facing outward. We will insert the screws and then tighten it down with washers and nuts in the back. We will then move to the other side to install the second bracket. It should be installed with the U shape facing up. Again, the bend will be facing outward. Here is a view of the inside of the enclosure. As you can see, we are tightening the brackets down. You will continue this process for both sets of brackets until they are secure. Then we are going to take our factory door and place it within our new bracket. Gently bend the door so that it can fit within each side of the bracket. Next step, we're going to install our subwoofer into the enclosure. We're going to make our positive and our ground connections. One side of the subwoofer will get double wire connections, while the other only receives 1 per connection. All of the white wires will go to the power, and then the striped wire goes to the negative. As we flip the sub over, we will only have 1 wire per each connection. Again, the white wire will go to your power, and the striped will be your ground. Now we're ready to slide our woofer into the enclosure, and then go ahead and screw that down where appropriate. Now we will mount our amp to the included amp plate. Let's start by placing our 2-channel amp up top. Make sure to position these as shown in order to access the crossover and the EQ controls. We will place our mono below. Next, let's go ahead and tighten our screws down to the plate and make sure they're secure before placing them into the vehicle. Alright, to install the radio, we want to remove the back clip of the waterproof box, and then we are going to place that clip onto the back of our radio dash mount. Now we are going to take our radio and flip it over and insert the threads into the back, and this will help us secure the U mount. So now we're going to install our U bracket and put the radio in our dash mount. First thing we like to do is put some tape around the center there to prevent any damage that may happen if you ride in rough terrain. So we'll go ahead and put the radio into our dash mount. Now that we have the radio inside, we want to secure the U bracket, so this will keep the radio in place. Go ahead and attach that through the threads, and then we are going to secure that with the locking washers and our nuts. Now let's head over to our machine. We're going to remove the hood first. Next, we're going to remove the top of the dash with our T40. So we'll unscrew those bolts. Then you're going to slide the dash forward. Make sure to be careful. You're going to have your harnesses hooked up back here. So we're going to want to remove these so that we can get the front dash out of the vehicle. When we're working on our machine, we like to remove the pull bar. It gives us some extra room. So we're going to go ahead and remove that. We're also going to take out the seats. Got a lever behind the seat. Pull up and push forward. Now we're going to disconnect the battery. We also want to remove the center console. We're going to be routing a lot of the wires through this area. So we have a variety of push pins here that we're going to take out. When removing our push pins, we like to mark these areas with blue tape. This is so that we don't forget where we removed the pins from. It's also important to keep your pins together in a cup or on a desk nearby. And then we have 3 more T40 screws that we need to take out. First 2 are going to be on either side, right there in the center. The last one is going to be all the way towards the front of the vehicle, near the footwell, kind of a tight spot. Once this is removed, we can go ahead and lift the center console out. And to continue dismantling the vehicle, we want to take out the entire front dash. This involves taking out some more T40s. So wherever you see a T40 in the front dash, you're going to need to remove that. Make sure to remove anything that you have in your glove box. Now would be a good time to do so before we take this out and you lose or misplace anything in there. It's good to get a Bojo tool for this as well, because there are some clips towards the top of the dash as well next to the glove holder. And these will just pop out, and once that's loose, we can go ahead and take the front dash out and hand that off to a partner. Now we want to take our glove box compartment out. We're going to remove the 2 screws holding it in place at the top. Once those have been removed, we can then slide that out, and this is where our subwoofer enclosure will go. In order to install our dual amp harness, we want to remove the positive and negative terminal nuts so that we can make our amplifier connections here that will power our audio system. The wires for the harness will go through the grommet, and we'll get to that in a second, but first let's gain access to these terminals. Next, let's move on to the grommet. You're going to cut a slit through half of the grommet just as we have done there. This is going to allow our wire harness to pass through the machine and go through the center console and to the destination of where those speakers will be placed. We will put our wire harness through that center grommet, and these are the connections that will be placed. Obviously, red will go to our power, black to the ground, and then the orange to the accessory turn on. And then we can replace our power and ground terminals there and our accessory terminal. So we are going to secure these terminals again by retightening the nuts that we previously removed. When installing the sub-enclosure, we want to be cautious so that our wire does not get stuck behind when we are installing the enclosure. So make sure to run that wire or have a friend hold it in the correct position so that it can be connected to the rest of the system. There are 2 steel plates included that we will go ahead and insert on the top. We want to prevent any rattling that the lower frequencies may cause in your machine. If you have a 2019 RZR XP, you'll need to modify the sub-enclosure very slightly. All this information is in the MaxLab link below. We have 3 mounting points where we will remove screws and then retighten them. The amp plate is going to sit as such. But first we're going to have to remove some screws. First one is up front in the dash. The next two will be attached to the steering column. So after we have loosened these up, we want to put our plate down and then re-secure these. We placed a towel over the amplifiers. This is just to prevent them from getting scratched. And now we're going to go ahead and make our connections. So let's go ahead and connect our amplifier connections. And those will clip in right there. Next, we're going to have our speaker connections. Our 2-channel will be powering all 4 speakers in our system. So go ahead and make your speaker connections as seen. And then if you have illumination, these 2 wires just tie off into each other. So as you can see, you just plug those back in through there. And we will be running our illumination wires back through the front grommet. Now it's time to make our RCA connections. Red is for right, and then the black one will be your left connection. For your subwoofer, you will go ahead and make the same connections, even though it's a mono. Here you have your different settings, so you can boost your subwoofer. We will leave this setting at 0 dB boost for our first test. For our 2-channel amp, we will move this to high pass. Now we got to do some routing here for our wires. Each part of the harness will be labeled. We have a white label, as you can see there. We want our left harness to go to the left speaker, so we will run those through the left-hand side under the dash there. And our right speakers, which are also labeled there, we will pass to the other side. Now we have our illumination and our pod speakers in the back that we have to pass back through the front of the grommet. Now after these connections have been passed back through the grommet, we want to get some type of fish tape so that we can fish these down through the front, through the center console, and then you want to make all appropriate connections. If you have pod speakers, you'll do that here in the back. We're going to zip tie our wires to the split loom. In the back of the vehicle here is where we will make our connections to both of our pods. For our pod speaker wire, we have routed these through the roll cage entrance in the back of the vehicle here, and then through the shock tower to the speaker. This is how you will make a connection from your pods to the main harness that is in the center console. So now we're taking our wire to connect to our pod speakers. So you kind of want to get a judge of length where you want to mount your pods. Make sure you leave yourself enough slack, and then go ahead and zip tie that down. After you have mounted your pod speakers, we recommend that you don't immediately make your wiring connections in case you want to adjust them. In this video, we are using our swivel mounts. This will allow us to rotate our speakers to the perfect listening angle. To rotate the angle, there's another screw in the back here, and once you loosen that, this will allow you to tilt your speaker to whichever angle you like. Now it's time to connect our wires. The black will be our ground connection and the white will be our power. If you have illumination, you will have an extra power connection. As you can see, we have our green painter's tape taped to the vehicle. Now we are going to take our Sharpie and mark the specific areas where we are going to drill through our machine in order to mount the kick panel speakers. So let's go ahead and begin the drilling. Before mounting your kick panel enclosure to your vehicle, you want to make the wiring harness connections to this kick panel enclosure. It's important to make these connections before mounting your speaker so that the wire harness doesn't get caught or is unreachable after it's mounted. After we have made all these connections, let's go ahead and place our kick panel in its proper position, as you can see here, and then secure it to our vehicle with the hardware provided. Next, we are going to mount our speaker to the enclosure. Before doing so, we will make all of the necessary connections. There There will be 4 wires that come out of the harness. First, the white one is our speaker positive. The white with the black line will be our negative channel. The black will be our ground. And then the red is for illumination. If your speakers have this option, you have 2 choices, red or blue. If you don't want the illumination option, simply tape it off and do not connect it. We've made all of our connections. Now let's mount our speaker to the kick panel. Make sure to reinstall the front dash to your vehicle before installing the radio. Once this is secured to your vehicle, we will install the radio and test the system. Next, we have a lot of different radio connections that we will be making. First off, we have our blue wire, which is our turn on, and it connects to the female blue wire. The extra male connection can be taped off, we don't need it. The larger wiring harness connector snaps into its matching counterpart. Next up, we have our RCA front and rear connections, so let's go ahead and put those together. There's also an optional USB port if you choose to listen from a USB drive. We have included additional inputs, so if you choose to add to your system, you can do that. Lastly, we have an antenna port, and if you require a radio signal, you will need to purchase an antenna for this at your local automotive store. After all the connections have been made properly, we can reinsert this into the dash. We want to make sure that the enclosure clip is still fastened. Once this snaps back into place, we're all ready to test our system. We will typically connect our phone or go to a random radio station and check the noise on all the speakers. Once we ensure each speaker is receiving signal, then we're done. It's time to hit the trails with your best music. We always love seeing our systems out in their natural environment, whatever that may be. So make sure to follow us on social media. That's at Hifonics USA. And head to hifonics.com for all information and updates. We hope you enjoy your new audio system, and we'll see you later.